Hey guys, how you going? I'm VaulSC. Welcome back to my coverage of the Bio-Heist ITS infiNity tournament that was in Hamilton last weekend. Playing, of course, with my Shasvastii, and went to round 3 after a major and minor win, so going well so far. But it's going to be Shasvastii versus O12. This time, it's the classic matchup, but the other way around, I'm playing Shasvastii, my opponent's playing O12. And it's going to be on the mission powerpack, which is where you're deploying in those two side rectangles, in the corners of the board. And there's this massive saturation zone in the middle, and at the end of the game, you've either got to have more of the 3 consoles through the middle, or you've captured your opponent's one on their side of the table. There are pretty big point swings for those. We'll get straight into it. You guys know my Shasvastii list from the intro video. I'm going to be playing the Shishkin list for this one, as I usually do, S1 as it's called, and my opponent will be playing O12, as I said. This guy is Matt. I've played him a few times in the local New Zealand tournaments in the last couple of years. Played him a lot with War Machine back in the day. He's still getting to grips with the rules and the strategy for infiNity. We'll have a look at what he's got. Alpha Lieutenant, solid. Kappa, Spec-ops. I can't remember what he had, so we're just going to assume that he was running the Doctor Engineer Hacker kind of thing. It would have been something like that. Miranda Ashcroft, don't really like her in O12 because she's still an irregular model, and for the points you spend on her, you could quite easily just get something decent that really has a lot more impact on your army. She's not going to be going and doing a lot of very efficient fighting relative to the other stuff that you have, which are quite good in terms of their profiles. Sirius, a trooper. I've always taken the Sirius in all of my O12 lists, but I run the Red Fury. He's going with the Assault Hacker. Again, the difficulty with this model is that you leave yourself very vulnerable to enemy killer hackers who are out in the midfield. You've got 1-0 killer hacker or Malignos killer hacker out there, and it can run into either your repeater in the Sirius spot or just the Team Sirius person himself or herself and just kill it. So, got to be wary of that. Having said that, if you're pushing deep into enemy territory with first turn, that Assault Hacker may be able to get a lot of value. Delta Spitfire, as you guys know, I prefer the boarding shotgun Panzerfaust, but there's nothing wrong with the Spitfire. If you can get it into the right place at the right time, that Spitfire is going to wreck. But just like any other drop troop in the game, you've got to be able to get it there first. Gamma Feuerbach, possibly the best the best Gamma profile there is. I'm partial to the HMG, but the Feuerbach is also very, very good. Love the full auto level 1 for attacking turns and the armor 6 for defending. Dakini TacBot, my fave, great choice for any O12 list. Really cheap, cost-effective, reliable, repairable, long-range aero clearance kind of thing. Only the one Varangian Guard, that is a bit of a weakness of this list, and if it were me, I would be dropping Miranda Ashcroft and grabbing like 3 Varangian Guards instead of 1. That kind of deal. Gangbuster Killer Hacker, possibly the best Gangbuster profile. You want at least one of them for the Mad Traps. I don't know about his groupings, but it must have been pretty small in Group 2 because he's got very few points left, Bounty Hunter and Diva Hacker. I think what you can do to solve this problem is to just choose one of the big investments in this list and drop it and be able to afford a larger list, or even just consolidate the, turn the Bounty Hunter and Miranda Ashcroft into a single unit and the Diva into a single unit with something else and just have a 10 auto list is probably the better way to play this. Bounty Hunter, it's a great Bounty Hunter profile, but if you're going to be running these guys, you may as well be playing Deschart, because that's where they really shine from being in the Link team. And Diva Hacker, I like the NWI and Whip 15, but it's very expensive, and you could get a Kappa SMG Hacker for half the price, which is definitely a better investment, because then you could have 1 Hacker, 1 Varangian for the same sort of outlay. Okay, so I get my wish, and I get to take the second turn of the game, which is what I want for my strategy for winning. It's much easier to complete the mission objectives at the end of the game if you're the last turn, and also if you're trying to stave off your opponent's first turn alpha run aggression, well, there's this big fat-ass saturation zone right in the middle there to help you defend and prevent that from happening. So first of all, just taking a hidden deployment verification photo of my Noctifer, which is going to be my right-hand flank, just covering through, not towards the enemy deployment zone, but like across the line here. There's a big gap here where nobody can deploy anything because there are 2 rectangles on either side. So there's the Noctifer there. We'll see a bit of a better view in the next photo of where that is relative to everything else. So if you imagine this big long rectangle along here, that's the right hand side where I can deploy. The HVT can actually be close to the back line of the table because it only has to be further than 4 inches out of the deployment zone, which happens to be a box rather than a strip next to your table edge. So the Noctifer was there. As you can see, it doesn't have the line of sight down the towards the enemy table, but it does have a good line of sight across my deployment zone where I suspect enemy troopers will be moving through. Then we've got the Tiger creatures. There's 1, 2, 3 there. There's the drone at the back. This is the Mentor at the back here with a decoy right there. And I've got my Caliban MSV-1 Spitfire out in the midfield. I'm going to be putting my reserve trooper, my Shrouded Hacker, right in the corner because it's going to need to come around and take the objectives, and I need to keep it somewhere nice and safe. The left-hand side of the battlefield, we have the Link team. So as you can see, T-drone sticking out here with an extremely thin line of fire down towards the enemy side of the table. It's going to be much harder for them to take him out with HMGs and stuff because of the saturation zone, but having said that, it will drop my burst value from 2 to 1 because ordinarily I get +1 for the Link, but the saturation zone will kill that. Tiger creatures out here, that's to protect these little points of the battlefield, the pain points where they come through and try and go for my Link team. Notice again, you can see on the left hand side of the photo the table that I was actually playing on game 1 of the tournament, and now you've got some pano over there. So note before, there is actually a hard edge of the table right here where we can't cross. But then again, you've got Shishkin, you've got Tensho, you've got the Spec-ops, the Fort Observer, and a Nicodron right at the back here. So that's where we're all holed up and camping around. Okay, my opponent setting up his Hacker Sirius in the midfield. He's got his Diva over here on his side there. Valkyrie is pretending to be a Varangian guard. This piece of terrain is actually meant to be opaque. You can't see through it, so the Dakini tac bot on the other side's fine. Upsilon Sniper up here. He's going to put prone markers next to all of those guys as well. Note that this is the objective I'm going to be going for to try and win at the end, and these are the ones in the middle which are going to also be big point swings. Okay, so we just talked about the position of the Varangian Guard and the Diva and the Gamma. Sorry, you can't see this very well. The Dakini here and Upsilon. Then he's got his Alpha right at the back with, I believe, some sort of helper bot or whatever it is helping him out at the back there. So that's that one rectangle. And then he's got his Killer Hacker out in the midfield, the Gangbuster with a couple of Mad Traps nearby, just covering the 2 objectives nearest to him that I'll be needing to score from later in the game. And on his left-hand rectangle, we've got Miranda Ashcroft there. We've got the Spec-ops way back here, and he's going to be putting his Gangbuster up on top of this this rooftop building. Of course, he's got Strategos level 2, so it's going to be 2 reserve troopers. As we talked about, my Shrouded Hacker's on the extreme right-hand flank and just getting ready to move around towards this objective, but I just don't want him to be in any sort of position where he can be attacked first turn and killed. I need to hold on to him, because otherwise I'm not going to have any specialists on the side of the table, which will be problematic for my effort to take that objective back. Reserve trooper here, it's going to be the Gamma and the Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter rolls up, I think, a multi-rifle. It's not a good idea to use your Bounty Hunter as an ARO piece if it's only got a Arclight Cannon and a submachine gun, because you can't rely on rolling a longer range gun. So if you're going to use a Bounty Hunter in this way, I definitely recommend using the sniper rifle version. And even then, you're playing freaking 012, you're probably going to be wanting to use stuff like the Lynx Sniper or the Upsilon Sniper for that job, and you've got a Gamma for a buck anyway, so you shouldn't really be hurting for ARO pieces. Cool, so the game begins with our friend 012 going first. He's moving up with his Varangian Guard. Once he gets around here, there is going to be a Noctifer that can reveal. I just don't really want to reveal it, because it's possible that he'll be able to beat me in the face-to-face roll, throw the smoke grenade down, and then we have an Upsilon moving all the way around here, kills my my Noctifer even at the -1 burst from the saturation zone, and then we have a problem. As it happens, he's dropping the smoke grenade down here. That's what this mark is going to be about. And the plan is for him to actually fire at my T-drone with his Upsilon, not remembering, of course, that I have 6 level 2 and I'll ignore the smoke penalty as I'm shooting back at him. So he puts that there, moves out next to the smoke, and before he actually fires at me, he finally realizes, oh crap, that's actually not going to be -6 to the T-drone. T-drone's going to be hitting on 15s, because that's +3 range, -3 for mimetism, and that's it. And it's going to be a 1 dice, whereas the Upsilon will be firing on 1 dice as well. Not wonderful for the Upsilon, so he decides against it, especially as the template will actually splash his Dakini at the same time, which would be terrible. We have the Gangbuster repositioning a little bit and locking his Mad Traps into place. That's happening in the middle. we're also having a move out and collect this objective in the middle of the table right off the bat, which is good. I mean, you want to sort of have a head start in grabbing the objectives, but on the other hand, if you're not doing anything to your opponent in the first turn, they're going to go into their first turn with a full army, and it's just harder and harder to stop them the later the game goes on if you haven't done any damage. And if they've got an entire army to just go and grab the buttons back at the end, it's going to be really hard to stop them from winning. Varangian Guard continuing to move forward, as does the Gamma. This is a coordinated order. The Noctva still not revealing, and the plan is for the Varangian to come through and trade with the Tiger Creature, which is a great idea for me. I've got a 6-point guy, he's got a 12-point guy, or 13-point, or whatever it is, and although he'll hit me with 2 Chain Colts, I'll have 1 Chain Colt back at him, and if both models die, it's a big win for me. After moving is Dakini out of the way with the coordinated order, he decides to just go for it anyway with the Upsilon. So he just pokes out behind cover, fires at the T-drone, 1 dice each. He's hitting me on 13. I'm hitting on, what, starting at 12, plus 3 range, plus 3 link team, minus 3 mimetism, ignoring cover. No, I'm not ignoring cover. So it'll be, I think it'll still just be 15s, right? No. Starting ballistical 12, plus 3 for the link team, plus 3 for range, minus 3 mimetism, minus 3 cover. So I'm on a 12, he's on a 13, so it's very, very even. Unfortunately for him, though, luck goes my way for this one, and he loses his Upsilon. It's very close to a coin flip. I won the coin flip. Upsilon dies. Miranda Ashcroft now moving through over to where the objective is to grab the other objective. And this is the Caliban here. Save that till later, and I'll move in with the Shrouded after a bit. Miranda Ashcroft, I think, has Specialist Operative. She does indeed. So that is what allows her to go there and grab it and possibly go into Suppression Fire. Repositioning his little serious team over here as well, just since he's got nothing better to do, so just sorting them out. And then he does indeed move through with his Varangian Guard. It's a bit of a trade here, Chain Colts versus Chain Colts, and luckily for me, he does fail his save, so he will die at the end of the turn, and my target creature is destroyed by the Chain Colts there. Then we have people going to Suppression Fire, Dakini Tackbot, Gamma's just hanging out there. Some people going prone, Gamma in fact going prone, and he's just going to sit and hang tight, wait for me. So it comes over to my turn, and we now are charging around with various target creatures that can't really get into line of sight just yet. Over this side, this target creature is going to be useful at going after Miranda Ashcroft there. We'll put this O12 dice next to the objective just to say that he's completed it. And more of them moving out now, just dodging any arrows that they face, for example, from the multi-rifle of the very distant bounty hunter up at the top. So then we're cranking out our regular orders after the impetuous phase is completed. Some of them will be moving back, some of them will be moving forward. And Shishkin stands up to do some work. She's got a full 5-man link backing her up, and what she's doing here is she's going to be firing at the Dakini attack bot at long range. So it's long range mimetism cover, which is not great, but she's ballistical 18, so 9's on 5 dice, and the Dakini will be firing back. I think it had assisted fire, so possibly a 14 on 1 dice. Shishkin's not too worried, because if she does start taking wounds, it can only be 1 wound at a time. It's not like those missile launchers that completely obliterated her, so she can move back behind cover and go prone, and then our Spec-ops can come up and revive her, and that's the plan with Shishkin here. Now, as has been customary during this game, I start getting very lucky with Shishkin, and when I say game, I mean the whole tournament. So Shishkin has not been performing very well in terms of dice. Shishkin missing, failing to get any crits, even though it's 40% every single time she fires, and gets driven back into cover, and eventually gets rendered unconscious because the Dakini just keeps slapping her with these hits, and she keeps fluffing every single thing, which, as you can imagine, quite frustrating for me. So we get in and we revive her with the Spec-ops, and we do it again, and after like a billion orders being spent, the Dakini's finally destroyed by Shishkin, but it takes me freaking forever, like the entire turn. So that happens, and she's just hanging out here, having to go prone. Wanting, of course, to avoid the Gamma when it's the Gamma's active turn. We have the Tiger creature moving on the other side of the table, trying to detonate the mad traps left by the Gangpasta, but only grabbing one of them. So the Tiger does, in fact, manage to dodge the mad trap and avoid that. But I think does get blown up by the bounty hunter. Can't quite remember, but at least one mad trap's removed. Then the other Tiger creature here able to move into base contact with Miranda Ashcroft and Berserker with a double action. This whole double action profile is really, really good. I just can't recommend it enough. And once you start getting the hang of Tiger Creature tactics, it's a lot easier. I forgot also that the Bounty Hunter's in suppression fire, so with that added in there, the Tiger definitely gets ripped up, but not before removing Miranda Ashcroft. And that's what allows me to stand up here with my Caliban Spitfire MSV1 and actually reposition to a better spot here where I can gain cover from the staircase and then fire at him. And this is a favorable shootout for the Caliban. It's surprise attack, good range for the Spitfire. I've got cover, Bliss skill 12, 4 dice. Goes down to 3 dice with the saturation zone there. Whereas the Bounty Hunter firing back could be at long range, 2 dice, -9, that kind of thing. Unlikely for him to pull it off, so the Caliban does win that shootout and removes the Bounty Hunter. I can then move forward to the edge of the platform here, and that does allow me to gain line of sight through to his Gangbuster. And again, Gangbuster not in suppression fire. I'm able to rip into him with the MSV1 Spitfire. That's able to take him down. So this sort of shows you the power of the midfield Caliban Spitfire, and one of the reasons why it's such a handy profile. Shishkin is a little bit immobile when she's part of the Link team, less so when you break her out of it, but she's such a big commitment. So while your opponent is worrying about Shishkin and hiding from her, you've got this other guy in midfield who's able to do a lot of the work and the damage. Okay. So our other Tiger Creature around here, just setting up a spot where I can possibly move in and go after the Sirius team at some stage. Over here, we're putting the Caliban back into camo state and going prone, and then that'll be around about the end of the turn. That's pretty much all I could do, given how ineffective Shishkin was with her orders. 012 turn 2, and we're now dropping in with a Spitfire Delta. So the Delta just pops in just out of line of sight and is going to be able to move up to the wall for cover and poke around and go after the T-Drone. And the T-Drone's not going to be able to do very well at close range, but this is the T-Drone FTO version, which has the wonderful flash pulse, so that's definitely going to help. So as the Delta moves in, I decide something sneaky here, and I decide to flash pulse back with my T-Drone, but also reveal my Noctifer Trooper, which will just barely be able to see past the T-Drone because it's Silhouette 3, and actually hit it as it goes around the corner. And of course dropping a anti-tank missile, not a splash template missile, because otherwise I'd hit my own bot. But this allows the Noctifer to fire and attempt to punish this guy, because he has actually landed on this side of the saturation zone and will have 4 dice otherwise. Unfortunately, though, we managed to whiff that. Nothing works, and the Gamma moves around now. Gamma against Noctifer, though, bit questionable because, again, you've got a saturation zone. The Noctifer loves the saturation zone because it's minimum burst 1 anyway. 2 shots from the Gamma, possibly even out of range. So range, cover, TO camo. You can find yourself hitting on 2s on 2 dice, whereas the Noctifer's landing on 12s on 1 dice. Really questionable play here from our opponent. Moving in, I think he's taking 1 or 2 shootouts and both of us whiffing the shots. So we get to that spot where the Gamma's just coming down the stairs and just looking for a spot where it might be able to get into correct range band with a Noctifer. But even then, with a -1 burst, it's just such a dangerous thing to do, right? Elsewhere, I believe we've got things dodging around. My opponent really not able to get very much done in his turn. So it's already over to Shasvastii turn 2 already. Because, let's face it, he'd lost a bunch of regular orders. He's lost the Dakini Upsilon, Bounty Hunter, Miranda Ashcroft, and the Gangbuster. And in his turn, just fluffing around with a couple of orders on his Delta, a couple of orders on his Gamma, and he's pretty much at the end of his turn. So with me activating now, turn 2, Tiger Creature moving towards the position of his Spec-ops. Spec-ops can't really do very much here. I'm basically stopping a lot of line of sight, then moving in and just attacking in close combat. I'm wanting to preempt the final turn now, so I'm using my opportunity at this stage to go and grab some buttons. The Shrouded Hack is moving around from its hiding place, and if I do this in turn 2, I can make it so that he really is limited in his options for his final turn. He can either go and grab the objectives all over again, or he can set up AROs, but maybe doesn't have enough orders for both. So moving in with the Shrouded now and getting into position for that final turn push. His Delta had recently set up shop on the angle here. I've lost a member of my Link team, but I've still got four players still in here. So Shishkin pops around. She's able to gain line of sight across here. This will be hitting on 18s on 5 dice because base 15 plus range, and the Delta is indeed shredded by that, which is wonderful. Delta is gone. Gamma is down the bottom of the stairs. Shishkin not really wanting to push out too far at this point. So with that having been done, it took a lot of my turn to actually go grab the objectives back with the Shrouded. I believe we push into our very last O12 turn. And this is where the Diva jumps out, moves over and goes for this objective, because he feels like that's really all he has left to go and grab that. And moving around with his Sirius bot, standing these guys up to protect the middle objective. So what we've got here is we've got the Gamma defending, we've got the Diva hacker defending, we've got the Sirius defending, and these two objectives are controlled by O12. So if I can't take one of them back, and if I can't move to his console closest to his deployment zone up in this corner, then I will lose. But if I can do one of those two things, it'll either be a draw or a win, depending on how things pan out. So over here we've got the Tiger Creature going impetuously towards this Diva. It's in range of everybody and it just gets shot. In the previous turn though, and I'd failed to take a photo of this, my Caliban had moved over to his side of the table just to position himself for a last turn push into that objective. I do want to explain why we've jumped forward a little bit and why we're missing a couple of photos from my previous turn, and that's because my camera ran out of battery. And after talking to a friend nearby, they went off to grab a battery for me, like one of those portable cell phone camera batteries. So I was continuing to play, and there were some moves made where I didn't actually take photos. Shishkin was moving out at one point, I believe, taking the risk of going up against the Gamma at one point. That may have been the case, or maybe not, can't quite remember. But one thing that definitely did happen is the Shrouder was in position, and the Caliban was moved over to here at the end. So this is Shishkin, Shasvastii turn 3, and that's where I'm positioned to start it off. So taking another look at this. The Caliban can go after the Sirius, it can also go after the Gamma, which is nearby, it can also go after the Diva. So we've got to be very careful about it. And we're wanting him to just barely poke around cover so we can go after the Sirius SMG. And it should be pretty easy to win that shootout, shouldn't it? Because you've got Spitfire, MSV1, you've got surprise attack and cover, and the submachine's gun's going to be long range up against surprise attack, cover, camo, and all that sort of thing. So pretty easy for him to do that. That is indeed what happens, and the Caliban wipes that out. Now I'm spinning coordinated orders, moving the Caliban around, and it's going to be going towards this objective at the end, but also with coordinated orders moving the Shrouded Assault Hacker around this way to hopefully get the Shrouded into base contact with that central objective. Note that we've taken out the Bounty Hunter and the Spec-ops, so there's no arrows from this side of the board. Everything he had in that particular rectangular quadrant is dead. So Shrouded pulling its way now over to here, and then we'll come into contact with this. We've removed the only arrows covering that side. Once the Caliban does move around to the objective, there will be a couple of arrows to contend with, but we'll look at that in a minute. So Shrouded moves in here, and I make the roll for willpower check to retake the objective and fail it. Spend another order, attempt the willpower check, fail that again. Spend another order, fail it again, and I'm going, God, I've only got a few orders left. If I completely whiff the rest of these, then it's a loss to me. And if I save myself a couple of orders to move the Caliban around to his objective up here to get a draw, the Caliban could get shot and die. So, like, what do I do? And I figured the statistically sane thing to do here is just to keep going with the willpower checks, because if I get one pass out of the next 3 rolls, I at least take back this. He hasn't got my console, so it'll be a 4-0 win. The very next order was spent, and the Shrouded finally does take it, so that willpower check is completed, and it gives me the win. But then what we're able to do is just poke the Caliban around the corner here, and fire at the Diva, shooting at him. With a couple of goes at that with the Spitfire, I managed to win the face-to-face roll once, didn't quite kill him, but then moved over a second time. And again, it's just shooting versus shooting. Caliban doesn't lose the face-to-face roll and ends up base contact with his objective in the corner. The Gamma's facing the wrong way, so he's not going to be able to shoot back at me, thank goodness. So what that means is that I've got more of the consoles through the middle of the board, and I've got the one closest to his side of the table. He hasn't got any guys next to my objective on my side, and that's a pretty big win for Shasvastii to end round 3. So pretty happy with that game. My opponent played a little bit too passively. His lists wasn't that great, I felt. So I was able to score a pretty big win now. And going into game 4, it'll be me as the only undefeated player so far in the tournament versus the other undefeated player. And then it'll be one final round after that. But next mission is going to be Cap and Protect. We'll show you how that game goes very soon. Thanks for sticking around.